Hello everyone, today I wanted to really quickly give an update to my classics readathon challenge, the one created by Lucy Powery. The readathon, I believe, was to be to read 12 classics, so one a month, and I think I'm doing so far pretty well. At the beginning of the year I made a TBR for my classics readathon, and I am kind of honestly pleased to say that things did not go according to plan. So I will put a picture right here of the books that I was planning to, or the books that were in that TBR. And you will notice that I think only one or two I have actually read. So yeah, my classics have changed a lot, not only for or because of the things that have been occurring around the world, but because I have also been a bit more conscious of how white that list was. So although there's still a long way to go, I am pleased to say that I have kind of diversified a bit my classics, and I think that I have done so also because of Seiji. I know I keep mentioning her, but she's doing a book club for diverse classics. Yeah, it has been really beneficial to my reading classics thing. I'm a bit scatterbrained right now, but yeah, so here are the books that I have read so far, the classics that I have read so far. So we have 7 books here, plus Little Women, which I do not have physically, but I want to. I will start with Little Women because it was such a great book, and it kind of details the childhood of these 4 sisters and their mother living in Massachusetts, and it's how each of them kind of struggle to grow up in, I think it's the 1800s or the Civil War era. It's them kind of struggling to want to be independent and want to be themselves and want to strive in a very patriarchal world. So it's a wonderful book. It also details them going into adulthood and how each of them have changed as time went on. It's a beautiful, beautiful story, and I love the movie. I have the movie somewhere. I bought the DVD because I love it, and it's one of my favorite movies just of all time, and it speaks to me so much. So yeah, loved it. Jo March is the best sister. No, they're all great. But yeah, wonderful read. So I'm going to keep picking up books from here because I really don't know the order in which I've read them. But yeah, Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This book is shocking. This was my first Octavia E. Butler read, and it's so interesting. I made a review, I think, about this book because it really details this very dystopian world in which everything has gone awry, and it's weird because in some way I feel like the government, although it is involved, it doesn't really detail what the government has done. It details more about how people have found themselves in this world that is without order and just chaos. But this is also a sci-fi, so we get to see how Lauren, our main character, she has these not powers, but I guess you could say powers. She can feel the pain of others and how that changes her perception in a world so full of pain. So yeah, it's weird. Also, she invents a new religion, and again, it just explores so many different themes and so many different aspects of our humanity. So I really, really did enjoy this book, and I cannot wait to read the second one, because I think that this is a duology. Parable of the Talents, I think it's called. And this cover is just beautiful. Again, I love these covers. and I cannot wait to read more by Octavia E. Butler. I have Kindred right there, and I mentioned it in my previous video, which I will list up here. Then I have Agnes Grey. This was my first Anne Bronte book. I will admit that it was very lukewarm to me. It was good. It's just that the story didn't really grab me. It basically follows this woman. She is the youngest of two sisters, and through her family doesn't, despite the fact that they are struggling a little bit economically, they don't really want her to work. But Agnes really does want to make a living and help the family, so she goes and becomes a governess for this family, and you basically get to see her coming into this role for the first time, and how she struggles, and how it's this thing of her struggling with her job and with these really awful kids, but having to provide for her family because her family is struggling economically. It also follows a little bit of a romance, though it's not the center of the story. I enjoyed it. It's not the best, but yeah. I also read A Room with a View by E.M. Foster, and this book I loved. It basically follows Lucy again. Yeah, Lucy Honeychurch. And she goes to vacation in Italy, and when she goes with her cousin, they were promised a room with a view, and they were not given a room with a view, and then they were basically all dining with various guests of the hotel, and the father and son duo kind of offered to give them their own room, which has a view, and that they don't really want. So that's how the story starts, but it's basically exploring not only the relationship between these two characters, and by them I mean Lucy and the son of the duo, romantically, but I also really liked how there were political ideologies discussed in this book as well. So I really, really enjoyed it, and I found the romance to be just divine, and the movie is just divine. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. Then I have Emma, which I cannot say, I mean, this book was amazing. I have even tabs on it. I loved it. I expected to hate this book because everyone had told me that Emma is such an unlikable character, and she is, and yet she's one of the most interesting characters in Jane Austen novels. Basically, this follows Emma Woodhouse. She is a rich lady, so she doesn't really have to marry. She is the youngest of two sisters. Her older sister got married. She is staying with her father, and she doesn't really want to do anything else. So it's interesting kind of seeing that perspective of a wealthy female that really doesn't want to get married, but she enjoys pairing up others and setting them up together. So when her governess, which is her best friend, marries and leaves the house, she finds herself bored, and she wants to I don't know, I guess go back into society, and she finds a friend and wants to pair her up with someone else. And it's kind of following that story, and how basically she meddling into relationships is not really correct. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think it's one of my favorite Jane Austen novels, and I loved the movie as well. So yeah. Then I have Sula, which I also loved, and I cannot wait to read more of Toni Morrison, because this book, I devoured it in one day. It was great. It was amazing. And yeah, this follows two best friends, and it's kind of how their differing upbringings kind of affect them throughout the course of their life, and how it changes the direction in which their lives go. And it's great. We have Sula, and we have, I forgot the other name, Nell. So Nell was brought up in this very stable household. Not stable, but despite not having her father around, her mother was very strict, and you could say that they lived in a very organized household. However, Sula lived a very, let's say, chaotic, or was brought up in a very chaotic sort of environment. Her mother was loved by everyone, and people slept with her, and she enjoyed it, and she was very, let's call it, sexually confident. Her grandmother was the owner of this huge house, and people went to stay in this house, kind of like a hotel of sorts. So you can see that she lived a very kind of chaotic life, and we basically get to see how these two girls kind of become best friends and eventually separate. And it's basically also by the middle of the book how they reunite and how different they are, and how this town in which they live, it's called the Bottom, and basically how this town perceives both of them and what is good versus evil. It's so many things. Yeah, it was great. I loved it, and I want to reread it because I feel like every time that I read it, I will just get something new out of this book. So yeah, really do recommend this one. Then I have To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. I will not say much about this because I found it boring as hell, and I mean, this is just a family trying to go to the lighthouse, and I know that it's supposed to be this metaphor for something else, and it's supposed to be something very poetic and something very metaphorical. I did not get it, and I found it extremely boring, but it's literally that. It's literally this family trying to go to the lighthouse, and I guess you could say that it also follows a lot of family dynamics. I would just say that this book is like 100 and something pages, and it took me like 2 weeks to read because it was so boring. Yeah, I have Mrs. Dalloway in my shelves, and I don't even know if I want to read it because, yeah, this was boring as hell. And then my most recent read was The Street by Ann Petrie, and this book is, again, one of those, it explores so much that I feel like it would take a complete new video just to talk about this book, but I will do what I can in explaining what it is about and what it explores. This book is basically following our main character, Ludi Johnson, and she is moving into this street in Harlem, into the 116th Street, and with her son, and she's kind of struggling. She can barely pay rent. She's struggling to save money and to kind of move up socially in the social ladder, but it's also it's heartbreaking because it's kind of seeing, I feel like this is just a great example of what systemic racism is and what it does not only to families economically but also to their relationships. So at the beginning of this book, Ludi Johnson leaves her husband because her husband cannot find a job, and when she went to work, her husband cheated on her with another woman. And it's kind of interesting to see how throughout the book she sometimes goes back to this event, and it's kind of angry because she feels like had her husband found work, maybe this wouldn't have happened and maybe she would be in a better situation. But it's kind of lingering that the reason why her husband didn't find a job was because of systemic racism. That, and also just, again, what it does to these relationships. We see how the son is very conscious of money, and he worries about money and the actions that this fact leads him to. And it's kind of exploring the myth that if you work hard enough, you will make it up in society, and kind of how Ludi Johnson begins by thinking that if she works hard enough, she will be able to save. And then throughout the course of the book, you see that she begins to realize that the game is rigged and that she will never get out of this street. So yeah, it's heartbreaking, and we not only get to explore her story, but we get to explore other stories and how other women have made their way in this world and how they have survived. Yeah, it's a wonderful book, a lot to explore. So yeah, those are all the classics that I have read so far. And let me know if you have read any of these. Hopefully this video wasn't that long. I think it will be. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys with the next video. Bye!